Hello, my journaling friend. It's Michelle here from Seaweed Kisses. And can you believe we are at part 4 of the Moleskine journaling series? Okay, so here we are. I'm going to do a art journaling flip through to help you inspire your own journaling spread and to give you an idea that it's not necessarily all about the perfect beautiful spreads. You don't need all of the washi tape or stickers, although you will see some of that in here. But really, I hope that this journaling series has shown you that sometimes it's just your own bare writing that is beautiful and it captures your, true emotions into this notebook, because that's really what journaling should be about, is memory keeping for you and capturing those wonderful life moments that you want to treasure and look back onto. Not about thinking about that stressful spread and how many hours it took you to do to look, social media perfect. So let me show you some of my little quirky and messy spreads. Now, most of you should know by now that my journal is, yes, it's great for memory keeping. I do a lot of goal tracking. I notice, reflecting back on the last 2, 3 years, I tend to gravitate more on like self-development and, self-help. And I've just learned throughout the years really that my journal is like my most powerful resource for manifesting my dreams and my ideas and my projects. It's like once it's on paper, it kind of affirms the imagination in my head and puts it into reality. It's really interesting. So with that being said, I hope your goal card is working out for you. And oh, by the way, I'm so excited to send the sticker for you. This is the Patreon only exclusive sticker that I designed. Journaling is life. Yes, it is. We are all about that journaling life. And I had a friend draw this up, well, not draw this up for me, but he's a graphic designer, so I sketched it out and he put this together for me, and I am just so proud of this little sticker. So now when you get it in your happy mail, if you are my tier 10 and tier 15 Patreon supporter, you are going to be getting this in the mail. So I can't wait for you to get this so that way you can stick it on your new journal or wherever you like. So anyway, I hope your goal card is working out for you. And if not, it's okay. With the new month coming up in September, all you have to do is just roll that over. But I promise your goals, they will manifest in time. This may not be the right time, but in the end of time, it'll come true. Somehow, the universe always makes things happen. Only if they're meant to be for us. With that being said, I want to introduce you to my first spread. Everything comes full circle. And I realized that where I was, 5 years ago is totally different than who I am today. But it's interesting because everything that I've learned throughout the journey comes back to how I was back then in a weird way. It's in certain parts of my life, I'm still like naive and innocent, and I'm still like learning and growing. And the people that I knew that helped me through my path, we've kept in touch, and positions and roles have changed. It's just really interesting, isn't it? And it's just weird to see that some people that may have led you astray are then now coming and wanting to, seek your advice or your help. So this spread was kind of inspired by that. But on this side, I just wanted to play with my gouache paint. Oh, a few of you have messaged asking what type of paint that I use. Is it watercolor, acrylic? It's clearly not oil, but I use gouache. Let me show you which one I enjoy. So believe it or not, it is this Reeves gouache paint that I got from Michaels. This pack, it's not even like an artist edition. It's very just, this pack I think was like less than $10. And if it wasn't, you know, Michael's always has those wonderful coupons. I'm missing a tube here, my white tube. I think I misplaced it somewhere, but yeah, I've had this for 2 years now, and look, I barely even used up any of these tubes. But that's the one thing I love about gouache is that you can, let me show you in my little paint pan. You can use it here. Well, okay, this is how I use it. I'm not a professional painter, so I'm sorry if you are. This may make you cringe because I don't know if this is the real, true artist way, but this is me as a student. This is my student way. So I will squeeze the paint into the little pan here, and then it'll dry up so it doesn't stay wet. I use these today. But right here, you'll see that's dried up. But what I like about the gouache is that you can just reactivate it with some water. So I'll have like a little water cup, and then when I get it wet, it turns into paint again. And it has water-like features. So I like that it looks like watercolor, but you can reactivate it. And like if I were to get this wet again, I can, you know, make it look different or paint on top of it. It's not as light as watercolor, but it's not as hard as acrylic. And with acrylic, once it's on paper, it like doesn't move. It's pretty much like permanent. And same with when you have acrylic on your paint board. Once you have the acrylic in your, you know, paint pan, you can't reactivate it with water. So that's why I really like this gouache. I can have it, and you know, to be honest, I haven't cleaned this ever since I've gotten it. So I've been using this, the same paint, and I just reapply it. But I don't really need a lot because my journal spreads, they're not, you know, intricate designs or full canvas pieces. They're just for a little playful, you know, floral designs or a little pop of color. But look into gouache. You might really enjoy it, and it's really fun. This is not going to break the bank. And maybe if you are located internationally and you don't have access to Michael's, you can find these on Amazon, or just look up specifically gouache paint. And the paintbrush I use is this one, Artist's Loft, and it is the number 6. So the brushes that I go for, I do look in the watercolor section, and I get the number 6 tip right here, and this is like the only one that I use really. So this is the secret behind my paint. Okay, so if you're wondering how this Moleskine Expanded or just the Moleskine paper in general holds up, you know, surprisingly, I know that some people say it's not the greatest paper quality, which I would have to agree, especially if you're into heavy inks. It will go through or bleed through on the back. However, with my paint, the gouache that I use, it doesn't actually bleed through. There is some shadowing or ghosting, but it doesn't really bother me so much because what I'll do, like on this spread right here, I can just tape something over it, or I will just paint over it as well. So that's a wonderful thing about this Moleskine Expanded notebook, is that it has so many pages that I can just play around with the layout. But as you can see, it holds up pretty well with my gouache. Now I don't have my brush, you know, dripping wet, which is another great reason why I love it. It doesn't require so much water like watercolor. You just get just enough wet on there, and it doesn't really crinkle the page that much. Okay, so for you guys that may seem a little paralyzed on how to start your journal, one thing that you could do with the first few pages, maybe lay out some of your favorite washi tape strips. These are a few of my favorite within my collection, and just by putting it onto the paper, it kind of gets your you know, creative energy going, gets you excited to work on the next page in your journal. And then, or you can do like a collage. Remember when I did this video here sharing my sacred space or my artist space collage? Now, while I do consider myself an artist of life, I don't really would say I'm like a artist master. So I'm not really good at like portraits or a lot of figurative painting. I'm more like abstract, just kind of like splashes of like color here and there. But another art journal spread that you could apply is just going on the internet and clipping out images of whatever you're journaling about that day or whatever mood that you're in. And then you can just use your paint to paint around the themed color or whatever emotions. That's another thing too you could consider when you're doing like a blank page like this. If you like lines, use one of your favorite colors for the spread and then just apply some lines here that you could use to straighten out. Well, actually this isn't really straight, but it just adds like a nice artistic look to it. It's funny because while I look at this journaling spread, it was like in the beginning of when I first started this, I was feeling like a fool. Well, I wouldn't say like a fool, but I felt like the spirit of a fool. I was very optimistic about how my upcoming season was going to be, and I was willing to take risks and just dive head on into things. And now that I'm pretty much almost through with this notebook and 4 months have passed, I was pretty much right about that. I pretty much stayed true to how I felt 4 months ago to now and then moving into the new year. So it's interesting to reflect back on some of your thoughts, 2, 3 months, or even a couple weeks. It's very interesting to see yourself from the past and reading the words that you've written down and how much you knew back then that would play into your future. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go on to another journal spread. Now, some days I explained in my last video, some days I'm not really into writing, so I'll just do a little sentence or a little blurb and then just, splatter some paint on there because it captures how I felt that day or my mood. But there are days that, when I'm not writing, I'll add a little bit more details here, a little image clip, and then just add just a pop of color. So you see how this little pop, it makes it look more artsy, right? As opposed to these pages right here. It's just like writings, but with a pop of color. I noticed these are the spreads that I purposely do to catch my attention. So I know when there are moments where I'm doubting myself, or if I need to remember that event in my life or that year, that pop of color is there strategically to alert me and be like, hey, Michelle, remember this? This is, a page that you might want to look into. So that's a little secret that I do with my journaling technique. I add the colors to attract my eyes. Or sometimes I'll just leave the page pretty blank, so it's pretty obvious, like, hey, Michelle, things are going to come your way. So that's another technique I do. I don't feel pressure to complete the whole page. Sometimes just a little line will do. Also, don't be afraid to add in additional pages. If there are some old notebooks that you're holding on to, but they have memorable journalings, just, rip it out and then just stick them into your journal, which I've done here. Just adds to the memories. Okay, so in this spread, you can see I used the gouache again, and I didn't really feel like writing much. So there was a time where I was just into floral designs, and anything that will spark your creativity, just go for it. If you think like, oh, I'm not a good painter, I don't know how to draw, neither do I, but Google is a helpful thing. All you have to do is just look up floral paintings on the internet, or dog paintings. Just use that as a reference or as a guide, and then just kind of do it your own way. So that's what I do sometimes when I'm feeling stuck, but now I just go with the flow, whatever I'm feeling. And then here I didn't really, I'd say this is finished, but I didn't really care. I just did like a little line, and then I played with different color blendings with my gouache. And yeah, it's okay to leave it like this sometimes. It doesn't need to be too busy. And then here I am again with the pop of color. So a lot of my journal spreads, they're not, you know, again, portrait paintings, a lot of details. They're more like pops of color into my everyday writing. And then, oh, there's another thing you can do. Fun activity that I like to incorporate into my journal is I will pick out a color, and the color will represent my mood. So in this journaling spread, this was my mood of the day. Take a closer look. So right here, I have like this tannish sunflower color, had me feeling curious, thinking about the what ifs. This burnt orange, this feeling, this color represented my feeling of like anxiousness, nervousness, not so much like anxiety in a bad way, but like, you know, when you're excited for good things, but you're also nervous because you don't know how they're going to play out. It's kind of like that, where you're like shaky, scared, you know, the butterflies in your stomach. And then this color is like a little smoky gray. It's like my blah, my laziness color, also known as procrastination. This rose color has me, oh, actually, is it rose red? Has me feeling bold, being the risk taker. And then this color here, it's a blend of like peach and yellow. So it looks a little darker on camera, but it's like a peachy color, and it has me feeling neutral. So just going with the flow. So you can have fun with your paint palette. If you don't know where to start, that's another thing to consider. Dive in with a test of your paint and, you know, do a little palette spread of your mood, your emotions. This spread, I was doing a little pep talk to myself, and I can tell just by my mood, I was nervous about something, didn't know, you know, what to do. And here I am. You know, a lot of my journalings, I like to talk to myself. So instead of saying like, I went to the store and I didn't know what to do, I will talk to myself and say, you will need to go to the store. You need to, you know, do this and this. It's like the third person talking to me. So right here, I said, don't let the toxic mixture of fear and laziness interfere with your goals, ambition, and productivity. Oh, so with my spread, you know, right here, I did the feeling of yellow. You notice the yellow is not on the side. Yellow is like where I want to be. It's like the goal getter. And this color is like my blah mood, and I don't want them to merge, because then it will just it won't be this bright yellow. So in order for me to become this solid bright mood, I'm telling myself, like, you know, strengthen up on your willpower. You can do it. So, you know, even though the spread looks nothing to the ordinary person, if they were to find your journal, I know what this represents. And that's another great unique thing about journaling. If you don't want to put something down into words, you can disguise it with paint and imagery. There's lots of ways that you can put, you know, hidden messages into your journal pages. Some days, though, I just like to have fun and just use up my stationery stash, because I have a lot of it. And here I was just in a traveling mode. I think this was right before I went to Korea, which I will be sharing a stationery haul. No worries, that's coming. But I was feeling just so excited for travel, so I got my travel stickers out and keeping the vision. This was to remind myself that I have to keep on doing what I'm doing to pretty much produce the outcome that I need to give me the time to see more of the world. And then some spreads, you can just add little fun, what is this? Oh, fun little paper, you know, like ephemera here. One fun thing that I love doing is doing these coffee stains. It's really easy to do. All you need to do is get like your favorite coffee mug or like a teacup, and then I get a plate, and then I'll pour like a little bit of coffee onto that plate, and then you get your mug and you set it, and then you use the bottom rim and you kind of just like stamp it onto the page, and it looks like this. Or you can even get your paintbrush and then just kind of put some coffee and then, you know, just go like this and splatter it on there. So that's a fun technique that you can include within your journal. Here I go with the floral designs again. And this spread, you may remember I did the journal with me, add the imagery and then my mood. So I added again some more colors for my mood, and again that pop of color, so that way if I'm just flipping through these pages years down the line, it's like, hey Michelle, look at this spread, this is something important, it's a life lesson that you've overcame. So it's a fun little thing that I do for myself. And here is another one of those simple paintings. This one is pretty much telling myself that I have learned the hard way that there are signs that show themselves to us over and over again, right? So let's just say there's a scenario, you don't know how to pursue it. So this sign appears and you know you should go this way, but you being stubborn, you decide, well, what if it's this way? Even though all the signs are showing in this direction, you doubt it and you go in your stubborn direction. This is pretty much what this spread represents, is stubbornness. Basically, you'll end up in the same direction, but doing it my way, the Michelle way, in the past has led me to go through detours, wrong turns, runarounds, you know, like it's longer. Where if I just went with my intuition, with the general signs, it's smooth, no, you know, I mean, there's going to be some obstacles, but for the most part, it's not going to have any detours. It's just going to lead me towards the final ending, where this took me longer and harder and jaggedy, you know, it's like, ugh. So that's what that was pretty much representing. Oh, and more clip outs. This I got from the Hobonichi pamphlet, I think like a few years ago. You can journal about your ideal day. And again, if you don't feel like writing it all out, just sometimes some imagery will help. So my perfect ideal day is waking up to the beautiful, you know, sunny day close to the window. I love when the sun shines into my room, and then I get ready after I journal, of course. And then just, you know, getting together with friends and family, good food, good conversation, you know, great gatherings, and then just watching the sunset. So just if you're looking for some journaling prompts or maybe some journaling like art spreads, this is a fun thing to do as well. Ooh, I forgot about this. Pressed flowers. I added this pressed flower here from my front yard, and I used clear packing tape to preserve it here so it won't crumble. And then this, what was this journal? The Power of Belief and Faith. I'm talking here about basically how we start off as a seed and we grow into a beautiful flower. But in order to, you know, grow into this flower, we need the proper nutrition, like the sunlight, the water, the soil. And just like our minds, if we want to move forward and be the best version of ourselves, we have to prime ourselves with the best resources. So great company and support, you know, good environment, the belief in ourselves, and just knowing that there are going to be obstacles, just like with the flower, with nature, with wind and rain. But those obstacles help you to become a stronger, beautiful person. Because if you don't care for yourself right, then you'll turn into a weed. So that's pretty much what this little ramble was about. Here I did just a beautiful lilac spread, and that's something that you can do as well if you know you want to use and dive into your journal because you just love, touching it and diving into it every day. Sometimes just a beautiful color spread will do. I do that a lot of times. If it's nothing that I want to put down into words, I will just kind of meditate and put it into the energy of my creative painting. And then some days I'll prep it for a future spread. And then some days I just like to draw out fun little patterns. All right, so I hope that helped give you a general idea of some fun ways that you can incorporate art journaling into your writing journal. And look at this chunky baby. Oh my gosh, she is like so big. I'm surprised the spine hasn't popped open, but she held up really well. That's one thing I like about the Moleskine journals is that they pretty much stay intact. And if I press down on it, there she goes. It's just great, but I like to see all of her goodness. So I will leave this undone sitting on my bookshelf so it can like breathe. Oh yeah, one thing I want to share with you, this pen, oh my gosh, believe it or not, this little cheapy pen, the Bic, okay, the Bic Crystal, I've learned throughout the months that this is the best art journaling pen that I enjoy using with my gouache paint. It is, I didn't realize it was like waterproof. When I write on here, sometimes I'll write and then I'll paint over it. None of the words will spread on. Here's another example. In that last spread, Wandering Outside the Box, I wrote this first and then I went over it with my gouache, but you could see it didn't smear any of that ink. Same here. I actually wrote out this title first, Season of the Fool, and then I went back with my gouache paint and I went over it, and as you can see, it did not smear the ink whatsoever. So it took me a while to realize that the Bic pen is the way to go. So now when I know I'm going to paint over my, my spread or my paragraph or the lettering, I go for this. Who would have thought this little dollar pen is probably less than $1. It's like 25 cents because you can get this in a pack for really cheap. So I lost the cap. It sits on my little desk, but if you guys have access to the Bic, get it. Get it with this gouache. It helps. Okay, that is that. Thank you so much for being a part of the Moleskine Journaling series. It's such an honor and a privilege to have you here and just to have your time and your attention. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to get your Journaling is Life sticker. I will do another post on that too, so you can, I'll think of a hashtag. Probably just Journaling is Life, but I'll do a post. Can't wait to see how you use it or will you stick it on. I am saving mine because I'm going to put it on my new Moleskine. That reminds me, by the way. Okay, so it's been about 4 months. I think I started this in May, June, July, August. Yeah. So it's been 4 months since I've been continuously journaling in the expanded version, right? And I thought for my upcoming travels, I was going to go with the Traveler's Notebook, decorate a new insert. It's light and easy. I can fill it up just the same. But what I've come to realize while staying in this one journal for this great length of time, I love having everything just in this one book. It's like, oh, something happened in May, I know where it's at. Oh, something happened in June or July, I know exactly which book to go into. So I'm kind of struggling with an October trip to carry my Moleskine, but then I'd be scared to lose it or have a separate art journal. I'm not too sure. What do you think? Anyway, that's a topic for a different video because this is already a little long, but thank you so much for being a part of this playlist. I can't wait to share more exclusive videos with you for next month of September, and then for October And if you have any recommendations, you know I'm all ears. I love hearing from you, whether it's in the comments down below or through private message. But we are our own little journaling club, and I'm just happy to have this great little community where we can all share our love for paper and pen and planners. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye.